Okay, welcome back, biology class. Before we move on, I want to move back to this picture. We'll be learning about two complicated processes. One is called the light-dependent reactions. That means you must have light for them to happen. The other part is called the Calvin cycle. It is light-independent, which means it doesn't require light to happen. These processes are a little complicated, but they're easy to understand once you get a hold of them. So the first thing I want you to imagine is a water wheel. Have you ever seen a water wheel in life? Basically what a water wheel is you've got a little running river going along nice and peacefully, and then all of a sudden maybe there's a drop in the river, and as the water drops down it goes faster and faster. Well, some people have been smart enough to build a water wheel, which basically is a wheel that dips into that water. And as the water moves past it, it pushes the wheel round and round and round and round. And people have used the water wheel to do work. Sometimes they used it to grind grain to make bread or flour. Other times they used it to pump water out of the river and move it somewhere else, let's say into irrigation. We're going to be learning about something that's not unlike a water wheel. In this case, the water wheel uses the energy from the water high up and transfers that energy into something else useful. In the light and dark reactions, in the light reaction, hold on, got lost. There we go. In the light dependent reactions, it's using light instead of water to move the wheel round and round. And let's look at it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to read on page 210 steps A, B, C, D, and E. And while I read, I recommend that you follow along on this picture right here. So open up your book and follow along while I read on this picture. And I'll say, okay, part A, here we go. And part B and part C, and so on and so forth. Okay, so first, let's read the caption in part A. Photosystem 2. Light absorbed by the photosystem 2 is used to break up water molecules into energized electrons, hydrogen ions, and oxygen. So, oh my goodness, Mr. Worley, this looks totally complicated. How can I understand all this mess? It's not as bad as you think. First of all, I just want you to imagine the electrons right here. That's like the water in the water wheel. As the electrons flow down, instead of going downhill, they're flowing down in energy. As the electrons flow down, they release energy that allows us to make ATP. Now, we need to focus. It helps us make ATP by releasing energy. And it's the light that brings the electrons up in energy to flow down the hill. So light comes in, pushes the electrons up in energy and down the hill. Let's read exactly how that does that. All right, so while you're looking at your page 211, figure 10, I'll be reading along. Photosynthesis begins when pigments in photosystem 2 absorb light. That first photosystem is called photosystem 2 because it was discovered after photosystem 1. The light energy absorbed by electrons, increasing their energy level. Okay, before we move on, don't get confused. Photosystem 2 is actually the first in the system, but it's named 2 because it was discovered first. That's important. Okay? These high energy electrons are passed onto the electron transport chain. As light continues to shine. Okay, so before we move on, check it out. Here's the picture. It's saying light comes in, photosystem 2 energizes the electrons and moves them up in energy right here. Okay? As light continues to shine, does the chlorophyll run out of electrons? No, it doesn't. The thylakoid membrane contains a system that provides new electrons to chlorophyll to replace the ones it lost. These new electrons come from water molecules, H2O. Enzymes on the inner surface of the thylakoid membrane break up each water molecule into 2 electrons, 2 hydrogen ions, and 1 oxygen atom. The 2 electrons replace the high energy electrons that chlorophyll has lost to the electron transport chain. As plants remove electrons from water, oxygen is left behind and released into the air. This reaction is the source of nearly all of the oxygen on Earth's atmosphere, and it's another way in which photosynthesis makes our lives possible. The hydrogen ions left behind when water is broken apart are released inside the thylakoid membrane. Okay, so just like in our picture with the waterway, you need new water to make the water wheel turn. You need new electrons to make the electron transport chain work. The electrons come from water. Sunlight comes in, breaks the water apart, and gives new electrons to photosystem 2. Photosystem 2 uses light to move those photosystems, so those electrons up into energy, and it moves on. Okay, let's continue on. Going to step B. But before we go to step B, I'd actually like to take you onto a website. But before we do that, I'd like to go to the next video. Thank you.